Hi, my name is Corey from East Coast DIY, and today I'm going to show you how I install the entire Schluter shower system for the very first time. I purchased the entire shower system directly from Schluter.com and it was delivered to the house. I will be installing their prefabricated shower pan with a linear drain, also the prefabricated shower niche and shower curb. Schluter is very DIY friendly. They offer tutorials on the entire process on YouTube, their app, as well as their website. And I will be installing the entire system just off of watching their tutorials. Schluter.com was also very user-friendly in helping me choose which products to waterproof my shower. The only thing I did not order from their website was a modified thin set just because the shipping costs were very high. I was able to find this at Floors & Decor. Here's a quick look of the bathroom that I will be installing the Schluter system in. Schluter offers several different prefabricated shower pans, meaning it's really DIY friendly because you do not have to create a shower pan. You actually start on a level ground. The shower pan that I am using is 36 by 55 and it's called LTS with a linear drain because the drain is up against the wall right underneath the shower head rather than in the center of the pan. The shower pans are very lightweight, already pre-sloped, and they can easily be modified to fit your shower if it's a different size. And as you can see here, the shower pan is already pre-sloped. So it starts larger on one side and then will slope down towards the drain location in my shower. I also purchased Schluter's prefabricated shower niche, and I chose to build a knee wall in between the vanities and the shower to hide the niche. However, I did frame it incorrectly, so I am having to make the actual niche opening a little bit bigger. As you can see here, the niche is completely built out already for you. It just would fit in between the 2x4s, or you can put it on the wall as long as it's framed properly. I made a few adjustments, and then here's where my niche is going to be going. Again, right in between the shower location, and then on the left side would be in between my vanities. All of the plumbing has already been completed, and then the shower drain is going to go directly underneath the shower head for that linear drain. And here's what goes directly on your wall. These are already waterproofed Schluter Kerdi boards. They come in different thicknesses depending on how far apart your studs are. I ordered the 1/2 inch thick boards because my studs were 16 inches on center. If your studs are 24 inches apart, you would need the 3 1/4 inch. Here's a screw and washer set that Schluter offers to hang these boards directly to your studs. They can be used for both wood and metal studs. And the maximum allowable distance in between the screws is 12 inches. They also may be placed in between panels so that the washer fastens both panel edges. I started out by measuring the height as well as the width of my wall. And I like that the Schluter Kerdi board has grids on it, so it makes it really easy to cut. I just took that height measurement that I just got from my wall and transferred it over to the Kerdi board. And to cut the boards, I just used my X-Acto knife. The Kerdi boards add waterproofing and can be installed directly on top of your studs or even on existing drywall. And now my first Kerdi board is cut to size. These boards are very light, so this is definitely something that you can do on your own. And to attach it to the studs, I'm just using that Schluter screw and washer set. I would recommend marking either on your ceiling or on your floor the location of each stud, since the board will be covering it. And again, the maximum distance in between each screw is 12 inches. So that first board is up, and I apologize, the lighting is really bad right now. The next board I'm just going to butt up right to that one there, and then I'm just going to use the screws right along the stud there, so the actual washer set will just hold those in place. And since I purchased Schluter's prefabricated shower pan, it calls for a level ground. My concrete wasn't completely level, so I poured this concrete leveler. So as soon as this dries, I will finish up with installing the Kerdi boards. And I do plan on pouring the concrete leveler throughout the rest of the bathroom, but for just right now, I just put a 2x4 right at the end of the shower, just so I could get finished with the shower first. Okay, so now that the ground is dried, I am going back and just finishing up the Kerdi boards. And I did this board the same way. I just took the dimensions of the wall and transferred it over to the Kerdi board. I did have to make a few cuts around the plumbing for this, but again, these boards are very easy to cut with your X-Acto knife. I also put a small mark right on the ceiling just so I could identify the location of the stud since the Kerdi board covers it up. And I'm just installing the Schluter screw and washer set at least every 12 inches to hold the board to the stud. And now all of the walls are covered with Kerdi board. Schluter also sells these pipe sealers that can go right over any pipe that's coming through the Kerdi board. And because I will be installing the same tile on the back wall in the shower and then all the way behind my two vanities, I decided to also add the Kerdi board behind that. Now that all of the Schluter Kerdi boards are installed, it's time to install the Kerdi-Band. The Kerdi-Band is a waterproofing strip that gets installed over all of the seams as well as all of the screws that were installed into the Kerdi board. And in order to apply the Kerdi-Band, I am mixing up Schluter's All Set. This is Schluter's own modified thin set that can be used to install all of the Schluter system as well as the tile on the Kerdi board. And to mix the All Set, I poured 6 quarts of water into a 5-gallon bucket and then the entire bag of All Set. The consistency of the All Set should be creamy and smooth. And the working time is up to about 3 hours. The directions call for you to mix it on slow speed for 5 minutes and then wait 10 minutes and then you're going to mix it again slowly for an additional 3 minutes. All of the tutorials suggest that you cut the Kerdi-Band to length before you start with a thin set. I cut longer pieces to be installed on top of any of the joints, and then I cut smaller pieces that will go over each of the screws. And to make it easier to apply, I put some of the thin set in this drywall mud pan that I had, and then I'm also using a flat drywall knife to apply the thin set to the Kerdi board. And once that entire joint was covered in thin set, I took that piece of Kerdi-Band that I had already pre-cut, folded it in half, and then just applied it into that joint. And I'm using that flat drywall knife. You can also use a flat trowel to just make sure that that Kerdi-Band is sitting flat on the Kerdi board. You want to make sure that you're not leaving a lot of thin set behind the Kerdi-Band. You want it pretty flat. That way there's no issues when you go to tile. I also used a damp sponge to help smooth it all out. I also pre-cut smaller pieces of Kerdi-Band that will get applied directly on top of the screws. So again, just apply a small amount of thin set with that flat trowel. Put the Kerdi-Band right on top of that, and then again, you're going to use that trowel just to make sure that there's no extra buildup of thin set underneath the Kerdi-Band and it's sitting flat on the Kerdi board. Another option for installing the Kerdi-Band over the screws is to make a longer strip like I did for that last joint. Apply the thin set down the entire row and then cover all of the screws at once. However, I do prefer doing it like I did individually. And on that wall, if you see both of the pipes that are coming out from the wall, those both have the pipe sealers around there. So you're also going to use that thin set to make sure that the actual band around the pipe sealer is put in place. They didn't have a sealer that would fit over my shower valve, so I took smaller pieces of Kerdi-Band and just made my own. And here, I'm just installing that Kerdi-Band around the shower niche using that same method. At this point, it had been about 3 hours and the thin set was drying out a lot. So I did notice that I didn't even use about half of that bag. So if I were to do this all over again, I would definitely only mix about half the bag starting off. If you do mix less than the entire bag, make sure to calculate the new water to mix ratio. And to make sure that the entire knee wall is waterproofed, I am installing a piece of Kerdi-Band along the top. And this here is definitely an extra step, but I am having the same tile from inside of the shower run behind the vanities. So I just wanted to make sure that the wall was completely even and there wouldn't be any issues for when I'm installing the tile. So I just did the same exact concept out here behind the vanities. Now that all of the Kerdi-Band is installed, it's time to install the prefabricated shower pan. I started off by sweeping the entire area and then just scraping off any of that thin set that had dropped. There were lots of different pans that you could choose from. I chose the Schluter LTS, which is the linear drain. So my drain is down here and it slopes. So it's already pre-sloped for you. So as long as you start with a level ground, this is already sloped. So it makes it super easy, especially if you're DIYing your project. I'm gonna just check and see. All right, it's a little pretty level. It looks like it slopes a little bit this way. So I might need to put a little bit more of it on that side, but not much at all. And then this here, it shouldn't be a problem because it's already going to be sloped. I just want to make sure we're starting off this way. We're starting off perfect. So pretty good, not too bad. So this here, this little piece broke, so make sure to put a little bit of stuff in there. So this here, I already dry fit it in. I did have to cut it down a little bit, which is fine. But it just says for you to make sure that it's even. So if you're cutting, which for this it doesn't really matter because it's linear, but I mean it says if you're cutting, if you order one that is a lot bigger, it says to take off even amounts from each side. If your drain is in the middle, make sure you take it off evenly from all four corners. In my case here, I made the shower two sides, but I did have to take a little bit off of the front here just because the drain was a little bit off, but not too much. So, alright, so that's good. Let me just make sure my drain is good. The linear drain comes with this styrofoam piece around the drain, and I didn't realize it was something that I need, and it actually broke. So here I'm just trying to fit the drain in place to make sure that it's the correct height. The drain comes with Kerdi-Band already pre-attached to it. So once the pan is installed, I'll then just cut that and install that Kerdi-Band directly on top of the pan. And I really didn't do a good job of showing it here, but underneath of the linear drain, I had already applied thin set. That way it will be held in place. And to install the pan, I'm again just using that flat drywall knife, or you can use a flat trowel to spread out a bunch of the thin set. And to even out the thin set, I'm going to be using the Schluter Kerdi trowel. You may also use a 1/4 by 3/16 V-notch trowel. In both of the inside corners, Schluter offers pre-formed seamless corners made for the Kerdi, and it just waterproofs the inside corners. And I install these just like the Kerdi-Band. So I'm applying some thin set to the Kerdi board, put the inside corner in place, and then with your flat trowel, just make sure that there's no buildup of thin set. And this is extremely important in the corners because we've already installed the Kerdi-Band that's gone down into that corner. And now if you're installing the inside corner on top of that, and you have any buildup of thin set, it can make tiling the corners extremely difficult. And in order to keep that inside corner in place, I actually placed my flat trowel on the actual pan, and then I used my flat drywall knife to get the thin set out. This kind of just helped so the inside corner piece wasn't moved when I was removing some of that thin set. And now to waterproof this section between the pan and that Kerdi board. I am using that same Kerdi-Band that I applied on all of the joints and on top of the screws. You also want to make sure that it overlaps those inside corners by at least an inch. And then you just do the entire process all over again. Again, you just want a smooth finish, so make sure that you get as much thin set out as possible, especially in those corners, and then use your damp sponge to smooth it all out. Now it's time to install that prefabricated shower curb. The curb comes 6 inches tall, and at first I thought it was a little too high. There were tutorials on how to cut it down, which was pretty easy by just using your X-Acto knife. However, I ended up just keeping it the standard height. Schluter offers the shower curb in several different lengths. I had ordered from them a 48-inch shower curb because I was going to have the shower facing the opposite direction and last minute changed my mind. And for my shower, I am needing a 55-inch. However, none of the big box stores carried the 60-inch in stock. So I ended up buying a second 48-inch shower curb and cut it down to 7 inches. I'm just going to attach that to the end to make me my 55 inches that I need. And to install the shower curb, I'm just applying that same Schluter All Set thin set to the floor and then also to the side of the shower pan along with that knee wall and then also the wall on the other side. And to apply that, I'm just again using my flat drywall knife. You can also use your flat trowel. And then to even it out, I'm just using my Schluter Kerdi trowel, or you can use that 1/4 inch by 3/16 inch V-notch trowel. And you also want to make sure that you are installing the curb on a level ground. Once all of that thin set was evenly spaced out, I also applied it to the bottom side of the curb as well as the side that's going to be against the pan. Once the curb is installed, I also installed those same inside corner pieces that I had just done on the opposite wall, in the inside corners on both sides of the curb. And once you have both of those inside corner pieces installed next to the curb, you will also be installing the Kerdi-Band in between the pan and the curb, and then I also installed it in between the pan and that knee wall. Again, just make sure that the Kerdi-Band is overlapping those inside corner pieces at least by an inch. Remove any buildup of thin set with your flat trowel, and then also smooth it all out with a damp sponge. It was pretty easy, just very, very time consuming to get it perfect. We used the Schluter linear drain, which is the Schluter, I believe, LTS. Also the curb, I went ahead and left it to 6 inches height, even though I was going to cut it down, but once we put tile down here, I think it'll raise it up enough. And then each one of those is done. There wasn't a valve cover the shape of ours, so I kind of made one, and then all of the pieces are there. The niche is done, covered, and then the tile is going to be all here and brought all the way down there. So I went ahead and did all of that too, just so it could be even consistency. Here's a drain there. So each one got a outside corner for that part, and then an inside corner there, and then the rest was run across afterwards. So pretty easy to do. All the Schluter videos are amazing at teaching you, and yeah, tomorrow there might be some of the pieces peeled up a little bit, and there's Kerdi Fix to do that. It's like a caulking, but that there, it's kind of common. So now this is 24 hours later, and I'm doing the 24-hour water test. I put a washcloth inside of a baggie and then just put that in the drain to clog it to fill the actual shower with water. And now this is another 24 hours later. As you can see, I've already laid the tile in the bathroom, and it looks like the water test passed, so we're good to go. And I was second guessing whether or not I had correctly waterproofed the shower curb. So I watched a few more tutorials on YouTube as far as installing the curb, and I think I'm going to add a couple more pieces of Kerdi-Band to it. I ended up mixing just about a quarter of the Schluter All Set bag with the correct water ratio and just mixed it for 5 minutes, let it sit for 10, and then mixed it an additional 3 on slow speed. The actual shower curb is already waterproofed, but since I did attach 2 of the shower curbs together to get to my desired length, I am adding a piece of the Schluter Kerdi-Band just to make sure that that connection is waterproof. So for you, this step here might not even be necessary, but I figured it can't hurt adding that extra layer of Kerdi-Band. And here's my tile choices. That blue tile I'm going to lay on a herringbone pattern, and it's going to go along that shower wall and behind the vanities. And for the shower floors, I'm going with this honeycomb pattern. And since I'm using a linear drain, there's actually no floor tile behind the drain. The wall tile will butt up right against that. You want to make sure that the actual floor tile sits flush with the drain so there's no extra lippage for water to go down. And you can raise or lower the height of the drain by just using those screws until everything's dried. And now that the entire Schluter system is installed, here's what the bathroom looks like. And again, I installed that Schluter Kerdi board behind the vanities as well because I'm going to be using the same tile along that entire wall, and I just wanted to make sure everything laid even. But now, here's what the final bathroom looks like. The blue tile was my inspiration for the entire space. It's Jeffrey Court Sailboat Blue, and I bought it from Home Depot. The floor tile is also from Home Depot, and it's Jeffrey Court Teakwood. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you want more DIY tips and tutorials, make sure to follow me on TikTok at East Coast DIY and Instagram at East Coast Florida DIY.